Hey, greetings everyone. It's GleeCon, and I'm back again with another episode of Lore of Warcraft. Thanks for tuning in. On the last episode, we pretty much finished off the Barrens. We actually have one quick little quest to top off Baelmondon, and then the result of our Aeon Swift River murder turned out to actually be a little elite quest in Stone Talon that we might have to give a go on the next episode. But that's pretty much it. We've also been reading through the World of Warcraft Official Magazine, something they began marketing at a BlizzCon in '09 and went on a 5-issue run before it went off the rails. But we're in the middle of the second issue, and stay a while and listen as we get underway with that. Last time we talked about some of the previous old classic raids, how as level 80s in Wrath, you could maybe, if not solo them, then 2-man, 3-man them. And we also looked at maybe a couple of the other things that were, if we scroll up here. Oh yeah, how some of the zones were going to change, the last chance to see some before Cataclysm hit. And now we're going to kick this one off with an article called Pug is not a 4-letter word. I'm guessing it's about pugging, not the adorable dog. Pug. By Casey Lynch. The updated Dungeon Finder tool grants access to cross-realm matchmaking, seamless porting, and a bevy of loot. Just add a great guide, a pinch of common sense, and some good manners, and happy 5-player dungeon crawling is yours for the taking. Okay, so here's a little gnome. There's a first time for everyone, and sometimes you might be playing with people who are just not used to grouping. Or I think from Quel'Thalas says that, and that's a good thing to keep in mind as you play. Even though it can sometimes lead to frustration, it's always better to be patient. Sometimes people can be jerks. Even when they're not full-on cursing, they can just say not helpful things that amount to, get good before you do this. Well, you know, you got to learn. You got to practice to learn. Pickup groups, love them or hate them, are essential for most players who want to accomplish anything that requires more than one person in World of Warcraft. Sure, it's nice to be able to group with friends, but sometimes even the most reliable guildies have other things to do. Luckily, setting up a 5-player pug has become streamlined with the updated Dungeon Finder tool that debuted with the Fall of the Lich King content update 3.3. The Dungeon Finder groups solo players or smaller parties of players together and places them either in random dungeons or in dungeons of their choice. It enables players to teleport to and from the dungeon and features cross-realm grouping. All this results in faster instancing and lower wait times compared to the old way. For newer players or folks leveling their alts, it's an immediate gateway to instances starting at level 15 without long treks across enemy-laden zones. For level 80 players, it represents a swift way to get their mitts on top-notch loot and a bevy of badges. Emblems of Triumph and Emblems of Frost are the current rewards. Whether you're in it to level, to collect badges for spiffy vendor loot, or just for the laughs, here's a primer for how to get the most out of the time you'll spend with the Dungeon Finder. Oh, hi guys, this way. There's no lull in team, or the two probably player-driven commentary, or maybe not, but we have, this looks like, that quest out there in Koldara, where you fly on the dragons, the Nexus, maybe. As a rule, every party needs a good leader. Queuing up as a dungeon guide is as easy as checking the box next to the green flag in the upper right-hand corner of the Dungeon Finder interface, but remember, doing so means you'll take responsibility for the finer points of communication and delegation during your run, for better and for worse, so make sure you're up for the task before you do so. Aerith, the level 80 human priest on the Latin American realm Quel'Thalas. That's the first time we've seen a non-English speaking. We've seen EU and United States specifically, explicitly so far. You have to check out your party's gear exclusively. Watch for the appropriate buffs to go up and politely communicate things like asking that antsy tank to wait for the first pull because the damage dealers are still drinking. Thoughtful communication and simple courtesies like these go a long way. Aerith continues, there's a first time for everyone, and sometimes you might be playing with people who are just not used to grouping with others. The guide should remember this and help players progress accordingly to avoid time and material consuming wipes. Any role in a 5-player party, guide or not, comes with an expectation of functional and social responsibility. For starters, come to a dungeon repaired and prepared with reagents, potions, food, and drink, and be ready to run. The last thing your teammates want after waiting for a dungeon to pop is for you to immediately go AFK and leave everyone hanging around twiddling their virtual thumbs or paws. M. Trutnod, a level 80 Draenei shaman playing on the oceanic realm Nagrand, puts it very succinctly. Do your job. Warlocks should cast their soulstone on the healer. Mages should drop snack tables, or at least ask if their teammates want food. Everyone capable of buffing should cast his or her buffs without being asked. I mean, that's fair. Maintaining effective group functionality also means biting your tongue sometimes. Don't grief the tank for losing aggro or the caster who grabbed it. Be civil, discuss what might have happened, and look for a positive solution. Everyone may not be at the same skill level. Help them become better players with positive feedback. Don't vilify them for mistakes. Help them get better rather than making them feel worse. Again, that's just common sense. But a shockingly massive lack of that common sense is encountered in PUGs. Ultimately, even sometimes among guild things. Ultimately, you can meet all sorts of characters throughout your dungeon crawling travels. Treat everyone as you would like to be treated, and most of the time people respond in kind. If someone is being particularly unruly, try to take the high road and concentrate on what you need to do to complete the run. If all niceties fail, you can always call a vote to kick them, but use that as a last resort. And that happens all the time, those random kick votes. Digging into the dungeons. Okay, so here's some, I guess, tips on the various ones. The Halls of Reflection. Tackle the opening waves of heavy-hitting trash mobs by stacking out of line of sight in the alcoves. Concentrate on the priests first. Their AoE knockback and ability to heal can be problematic, so burn them down fast. And watch for the ranged damage dealers. Sometimes it's difficult for the tank to get aggro on them because they're out of his or her sight, which is why it's important for everyone to tuck into the alcove, forcing those mobs to move much closer to the group, where they can be picked up much more easily. The first two bosses, Falric and Marwyn, are your basic tank and spank. During the getaway sprint from Arthas, focus DPS on the Risen Witch Doctors first, then the Lumbering Abominations, and keep on moving up the path since this is a timed escape. Do it in less than 6 minutes for the We're Not Retreating, We're Advancing in a Different Direction achievement. The Pit of Saran. Watch out for the giant Saranite chunks the first boss, Forge Master Garfrost throws. They do big damage if they hit you, so keep on your toes. During the second boss encounter, make sure you move constantly during Krickenik's explosive barrage ability. For the Emeryar groups that follow, mark them individually and quickly burn them down one at a time. Be sure to sprint to the halfway point of the Ice Tunnel Gauntlet before stopping to take on the monsters that are chasing you. Look for the big circular metal plate on the floor. Avoid the icicles by steering clear of the spell marks on the floor. If you avoid them all, you can get the Don't Look Up achievement. The final boss fight, Scourge Lord Tyrannus, is fairly straightforward. Just make sure you stop dealing damage or casting spells if you have the 8-second Overlord's brand cast on you. Otherwise, let it rip with everything you have. The Forge of Souls. This is a quick run, but be warned, the mobs pack some major hit points and can dish out some serious punishment. When you encounter the first boss, Bronyam, stack up together on him when he casts his Soulstorm AoE damage spell. DPS characters should take on the Corrupted Soul Fragment adds or allow 4 to spawn and then down him while all 4 is still alive, which is trickier than it sounds, for the Soul Power achievement. For the Devourer of Souls fight, stop damage during the Mirrored Soul debuff, avoid the Wraiths during Unleash Souls, and take cover during Wailing Souls. Halls of Lightning. Stay out of General Bjarn Grimm's way when he goes into his Berserk stance, and take down Dwarf Pats quickly as they'll heal him. Run away when Ianar's sparks start crawling down the hall, and similarly flee Loken's Lightning Nova, keeping a 10-yard range between players to avoid damage from his Arc Lightning. Trial of the Champion. The first fight starts on horseback, which takes some getting used to. Try to keep your shield at the maximum green, and don't be afraid to grab a new horse if you take heavy damage. After you knock your opponents off their horses, the rest of the fight is a simple tank and spank, though mark each boss for a quick, clean burn. In the final Black Knight fight, back up to stay clear of the ghoul explosions after each phase. Otherwise, let the miserable old party pooper have it with everything you've got. On Kahet, the Old Kingdom, for the Elder Nadox encounter, always shift DPS and melee to Guardians when they spawn. Against Jadoga, Shadowseeker, the third boss, kill the minion selected for a sacrifice ASAP. The final boss, Herald Volage, becomes invulnerable twice during his insanity cast, creating hostile doppelgangers of each player. Yeah, go ahead and kill your evil twin. Ajol Narub, this dungeon can be run very quickly indeed, and features 3 boss fights in fairly close succession. Watch for the Zerg rush with the Krikthir the Gate Watcher. When you reach the final fight against Anubarak, make sure you're in the ring before you trigger the fight, or you'll be locked out. Yeah, I've had that happen on other fights too. Halls of Stone. The standout encounter in this dungeon is the Bran Bronzebeard escort mission through the Tribunal of Ages. Tank the mobs at the entrance to the room and stay away from the Searing Gaze beam or die. Against Shionir, the Iron Shaper, if you don't down him before the oozes spawn, pick up the malformed ooze adds immediately. That is, unless you want the Abuse the Ooze achievement for killing 5 iron oozes. If that's the case, allow 2 malformed oozes to combine and create 1 iron ooze. Let 5 of these spawn, kill them, and then take down Sionir for the achievement. A little knowledge can ease your path through Azeroth's dungeons. So they're just continuing. What about the Oculus? One of the best known and most feared dungeons of the... that's what it was, not Nexus. Oculus. The Wrath of the Lich King expansion. The Oculus is easier now that it's been in the past thanks to some recent adjustments, and more appealing too thanks for some new rewards. Make sure you grab the appropriately colored Drake for your role. Ruby is tank, Amber DPS, green is healing. I never knew that it mattered. Good to know. Move upward and methodically clearing out each tier of monsters, and don't forget to clear the outer rings too. During the final fight against Lay Guardian Aragos, try to stay very close together to maximize healing. During his planar shift phase, Aragos becomes invulnerable and fires planar anomaly sparks that chase you. Strafe away from the glowing balls, and as soon as they disappear, group up again and continue to burn them down. Utgard Pinnacle. When facing Skadi the Ruthless, designate a player to be in charge of harpoon duty, which means shooting the harpoons and shooting down Skadi. The final face-off with King Imran is basic tanking and spanking. Just don't get alarmed when his Scream of the Dead stuns everyone in the party for 8 seconds. Okay. You can also get Laddie Daddy We Likes the Skadi if you can get 3 harpoons, save them, and then take them down, take Skadi off, knock him off the thing with 3 harpoon strikes in 1 pass. Drak'Tharon Keep. Make sure to send ranged DPS to AoE the top of the stairs to burn down the mobs during Novos the Summoner's immunity phase. King Dread is straightforward. Just burn him down and prepare for his fears. During the final boss fight, everyone in the party is turned into skeletons when the Prophet Tharanja casts his Declay Flesh spell. Pop your bone armor first for a huge armor buff, then slam, slaying, strike, spams. You'll be back to your normal self before you know it, and you can finish off the bony boss. Gundrak. All the bosses in these dungeons are fairly easy to overcome. Prepare to be speared by large charging animals during the final fight with Galdara, and let everyone in the party get impaled when he transforms into a giant rhino for the Share the Love achievement. Caverns of Time, the Culling of Stratholme. All the bosses are tank and spank, including the Timed Infinite Corruptor in Heroic mode, which drops a guaranteed Bronze Drake. Nowadays, you have a very high chance of nabbing the reins to this very fast flying mount, as most players running this already own the mount. The Nexus. Watch the pulls in the Hall of Stasis. Triggering too many ice block mobs at once can spell disaster, especially on Heroic with Commander Stoutbeard when you're Horde, or Commander Kulorg when you're Alliance running around. When facing Anomalous, make sure DPS switches to the Chaos Rifts immediately. Karastraza is your basic dragon spank. Avoid the mouth and tail, keep moving, and burn her down fast. Trying to figure out the rhyme or reason for which order they place these. Utgard Keep. This cousin to the more difficult Utgard Pinnacle is a quick and basic dungeon crawl. The final boss, Ingvar the Plunderer, is resurrected after you down him the first time, but it doesn't take long to burn him down to his second death. Violet Hold. This is good old-fashioned basic fun. Portals open up, stuff comes out, kill it. If you get Icaron, the defense control crystals spread around the walls can help defuse the elemental adds, but other than that, this dungeon is a nice warm-up to the Lich King's more challenging dungeons. Yeah, is a fun one. And some more general tips. Healing pugs. When you first go into a dungeon as a healer, check everyone's gear and start formulating a game plan, says Peace, a level 80 priest from Zuljin, US. If the tank looks like he or she has just hit 80, but your DPS are dripping with purples, you might have to anticipate the tank losing aggro to the hail of DPS rained down by your party's hurtmongers. Likewise, if all your new random friends are sporting quest greens and basic gear, it'll take them longer to kill things, and their lower armored gear and lower health will result in a little less margin for error if things go awry than with epic geared people. Knowing what you're dealing with is half the battle and allows you to anticipate and control the situation more, rather than simply reacting to what's going on and being blindsided. It'll also help you give quality direction during the run if needed to ensure the group is successful. I don't think I've ever scoped out everyone's gear for a pug group. If things do start going wrong, you'll need to make some tough decisions about who lives and who dies. Joe Mannix, level 89 Elf Druid on Kilrog US, says, when things get dicey, I let low DPS go first and ranged casters second. The tank must survive at all costs. I've taken down bosses in Icecrown Citadel 5-player heroics with just a tank left. If they are good, you can heal through the end of the battle. That's true. As long as it's not like a hard cap on time, you'll be able to do it with just a tank and a healer. Tanking pugs. If healers babysit the tank, tanks babysit the highest DPS in pugs, at least according to Gillisil, a human paladin on the Oceanic realm the Grand. Like P, she recommends a quick team evaluation before rushing off into the first group of monsters. Identify your top DPS immediately. It used to be the tank's responsibility to protect the healer, but I don't really find that to be true in pugs for the most part. A look at the DPS characters helps me establish who might potentially cause me trouble during the run, and don't ever assume a party can handle multiple pats simultaneously. I've seen many tanks do that, and the DPS and healers aren't up to it. It's a recipe for an insta-wipe. Take it easy for the first few fights, look at what's going on, and adjust your strategy based on how your group is performing. And one last thing, always keep an eye on the healer. Wait for them to drink up before you hurtle off in search of the next group, and don't forget that they can't heal around corners. For an even more detail about tanking random dungeons, take a look at the tanking column on page 136 of this issue, which covers some of the best practices for tanks using the Dungeon Finder tool. That's the 3 articles I think we have at the very end of the issue. Dealing damage in pugs. DPS may bring the boom, but that boom needs managing, says John Genie, a level 80 mage from Kilrog, US. I like to let the tanks season the meat, so to speak. I let them build up some nice aggro on the monsters before laying into them. Make sure you are concentrating on the tank's main target and working within the limitations of the tank's abilities. Don't go all out from the beginning. Watch to see how the tank is playing. It's easier to dial up the damage if the tank is good than dial it down if the tank is less experienced and can't handle your damage. The key thing for DPS characters to remember is that the point of running a heroic is to get to the end of the dungeon unscathed by working as a team. It's not a showcase for impressing everyone with your fantastic damage-dealing abilities. Sure, you might be able to pull 8k DPS, but that's not going to be very useful if you keep on pulling aggro and putting everybody in jeopardy. The very best DPSers are the ones who make the dungeon run feel easy, and that is a fun challenge in and of itself. Sure. Alright, now we'll talk about some tactics for the arenas back then, which I feel like we did that too. Last issue, they really like these. Has the burst bubble popped? Wrathful Gladiator's vestments and the Wrathful Gladiator's refuge here. Our team has not had much trouble getting used to the new resilience changes and is pretty much stuck to the same plan, says Dan on Illidan in the US. Healing and resilience in Arena Season 8. World of Warcraft Content Update 332 quietly ushered in some subtle changes to competitive PvP that had some dramatic results. Resilience got a significant boost to its damage and critical strike reducing capabilities, while the effectiveness of healing spells in arenas and indeed battlegrounds was reduced by 10%. How has this changed the way players have approached arena play in Season 8? We've talked to battle-hardened experts from around the world to gain insight into the ways they're refining their techniques and approach to stay ahead of the competition. Here we have the Wrathful Gladiators Battle Gear and Wrathful Gladiators Wartide. This is probably the sets for that season. Although the recent changes only affect 2 aspects of the game for PvPers, the effects are quite dramatic. Vel Suz, a Tauren Druid on BlackRock US, states, I have obtained the latest PvP gear along with some strong PvE pieces to maximize my healing power. Hots are much stronger with the increased spell power the new gear provides. I try to keep those going on my target. I'm providing less overall healing due to the new overall PvP healing reduction, so I need to rely on my haste buff, which shortens the time between global cooldowns. This allows me to assist with crowd control by adding thorns in between. Other players like Dan, who plays a dual spec Elemental and Restoration Shaman on Illidan US, says the resilience and healing changes challenge him in several ways. Shamans have a more difficult time due to the reduction in healing effectiveness. We run out of mana much quicker against cleave teams, and as a result, I've gone to a full MP5 set of gear to keep up with the demands on healing. Not all players agree, though. Just ask Xavier, a human warrior from the Barthless Oceanic realm. As a warrior, I have not noticed my healer pressing to keep me alive. I play both 3v3 and 5v5, and in both cases, our healer has never had a problem keeping me alive for the match. Oh, humble brag. Blood Elf Warlock Out of Loneliness from Spirestone TW. I don't know what TW, maybe that's Taiwan server? I'm not sure. Agrees with Xavier. The impact is not as big as I thought. In other words, it is a successful debuff. This sentiment is echoed by his Tauren Druid compatriot Little Grey from Wrathbringer TW, who notes, so far I feel little difference. Maybe in the later stage of the season we'll feel more difference in it. Whichever side of the fence you're on, resilience effectiveness has been increased for everyone who plays in the arena, and as a result, many players have noticed a difference in survivability. Nels's comments, I believe the resilience change has helped healers. In previous seasons, people were doing large amounts of damage and you were hard-pressed to keep your teammates alive. Now that you take less damage, your healer has a chance to keep up with you. Out of Loneliness agrees and observes that the resilience change has affected some specific team combinations that use damage bursting for an insta-kill. It is now harder for them to do this. Dan's team is less burst-oriented, he notes. Our team has not had much trouble getting used to the new resilience changes and has pretty much stuck to the same plan since it was implemented. Tactical strategies have also remained largely unchanged for Paladin Maradasan from Stormscale EU. We really have not done much to change strategies when fighting, but we do notice it's harder to take healers down as well as warlocks. They seem to survive much longer than in the past with the new resilience. Little Grey from Wrathbringer TW also points to warlocks as being potentially strong characters in Season 8. I think combinations with the warlock and druid would occupy some place on the ranking list. The chain crowd control ability they have is always powerful. Plus, the resilience change made players harder to kill. They could make great use of their durability in prolonged fights. Mugems, a Draenei shaman on Magtheridon US, doesn't see difficulties adjusting to the challenge. The first week or so of the patch, we noticed the resilience changes with teams lasting much longer in combat. After we got some Ice Crown Citadel gear upgrades, the damage output feels much the same. I do notice that healing seems a bit stronger as a result, but not much more than Season 7. As would be expected, players will always find ways to adapt to changes. Little Grey gives some insight. You need to chain control your enemies more precisely and carefully. So far, there's not much difference between this and Season 7, though there are fewer insta-kills in matches. Maybe the effect of the change will be more obvious in the later stage of the season and even higher with resilience. I would think that would be good. How would having more insta-kills be better? Wrathful Gladiator's Investiture. Wrathful Gladiator's Pursuit, a hunter set. Checking the competition's composition. When deciding what kind of team to put together for a new arena season, many players tend to look at the top-rated teams from the previous seasons for inspiration. But those at the cutting edge try to think ahead of the competition, anticipating what they might be doing and getting creative to provide a counter to any new threats. Recently, many teams have found success using one healer and 2 DPS casters, or a composition containing a Beastmaster Hunter, Enhancement Shaman, and a Holy Paladin. But will the new changes in the arena environment see an emergence of new teams? Little Grey thinks so. There's a new composition of Death Knight, Priest, and Druid, and it feels a bit overpowered for me because it has some advantages over all single healer light control compositions. I thought the classic Rogue Mage Priest combo might be made weaker, but so far it still seems to be powerful with both its attacking and defending abilities. Kezardrix, a human warlock from the Latin American realm Ragnaros, has seen team compositions change over the last few seasons. The best team, I believe, is the Warrior backed by 2 healers. It's almost comical watching the Warriors dominate with Bladestorm through some of the matches we've played. He also notes that the healers complement each other and keep added pressure on the other teams while trading crowd control to assist the Warrior. Mugems enjoys a different take on his number 1 ranking in his battle group. Although we are up in the rankings, I have to admit the teams I've faced using an Elemental Shaman, Affliction Warlock, and Restoration Druid tend to give us the most trouble. They all have 3 types of crowd control. None of them share diminishing returns with anyone else. Those types of teams can use Cyclone, Fear, Cyclone, Hex rotations on anything, which just sets them up for kills. Dan agrees with that troublesome team assessment. A Retribution Warrior and Elemental Shaman combo can take advantage of the Wind Fury totems and Bloodluster heroism. A warrior offers up retribution and interrupts, which adds pressure to the other side, while the shaman can purge most problematic effects. That's Wrathful Gladiator's Redemption, like a paladin set. Wrathful Gladiator's Desecration, maybe a rogue set. No. Maybe. Can you be a Draenei rogue? Maybe. What's clear is that experimentation is the order of the day. The changes to Arena are giving other classes the chance to shine. Maradasan favors teams that combine a holy paladin or priest with a beastmaster, hunter, rogue, or warrior. Warriors can enrage with the new gear and are very strong. The advantage of having a rogue caster priest combo is a lot of crowd control, strong offensive dispels, and shields that mitigate burst damage, enabling you to pile up the DPS. Little Gray leverages the strengths of a Death Knight for his two favorite compositions. Death Knight, Disciplined Priest, and Druid can offer extreme time-lapse durability composition. With mana burn, plenty of controls, the best AoE dots, and high durability, while Hunter, Death Knight, and Paladin or Druid can deliver the best one-wave style attack spray that try to take down an enemy with a single attack burst. But even with the recent changes and new strong compositions emerging, many players still have faith in tried and true teams. Velsuz is one such person. A group with an enhancement shaman, beastmaster, hunter, and healer can pop heroism or bloodlust and summon wolves right out of the gate. If executed properly, the strategy can put the opponents on the defensive. What's clear is that experimentation is the order of the day. While there are old favorites still in the mix, the changes to Arena are giving other classes the chance to shine. Continue also Arena playing it your way. Here's the Wrathful Gladiator's Regalia, Mage Gear, Wrathful Gladiator's Vindication. That could be Warrior, but it also looks like it could be Paladin. Arena devotees love to experiment with new characters and styles for play during the off-season. In the end, though, the class and spec most players gravitate toward is usually the one that provides the best synergy with their playstyle while delivering the ability to dole out defeats to their opponents. So, how are the new Arena changes affecting players' favorite characters? Velsuz really loves his Druid, and you can hear the excitement when he describes the benefits of his class. Trees and Boomkins both benefit greatly from the changes. As a healer, I now enjoy the buffering of Nature's Grasp that provides 3 charges I can divide among several targets when I need to help with crowd control. The mana cost is also effective for Typhoon and Starfall, which will be huge for adding damage as the season progresses. Xaviarn stands behind his selection of the warrior class, stating, "I've always been a warrior, and with Bladestorm now being so strong, you have a noticeable advantage when you hit your opponents with damage. That alone can put the finishing touches on matches for you." With that type of damage looming large for cloth wearers, one might think twice before entering the arena with one. Not so for Kezardrix. I love the Warlock class, and I have no intention of changing, even though there seem to be some imbalances, such as warrior gear seeming to ignore armor penetration. I still have the full benefit of my dots to keep teams busy and worried about my ticks. Muggins plays as shaman for the pure love of the class. I moved to the class because you can play both offense and healing depending on the needs of the team. I built talents to obtain reduced cooldowns on shocks and grounding totems so I can control the opposing DPS and healers a little more effectively. It also allows for me to be more versatile along with a hex or two added for good measure. Some players select classes or specs. This is the poster in the middle, which is a dope one of Deathwing, maybe fighting. Looks like he's fighting another dragon, possibly going up against like the other 4. And here you have his avatar form, just like we've kind of seen on the cover, I believe. Compliment their team. Marada-san is one of those players and states, "I changed from a Retribution Paladin to Holy to add strength to the team. We're taking advantage of the resilience buff to add to our healing capability. The double healing warrior teams are really hard to overcome right now, so that's what we're doing." As Season 8 progresses, strategies and teams will continue to change as players jockey for ratings and potential appearances in regional competitive events, but despite their ever-shifting environment, the bottom line is that it's the competitiveness that drives most players. As Velsuz puts it, "When those doors open and I enter the arena, I love to see who I'm facing. My heart pounds when I realize after hovering over the names I'm going against a really good team and that this match is going to be a really tough fight." That's what he says. Velsuz, Blackrock of US. Wrathful Gladiators, Wildhide. Maybe that's a shaman. Wrathful Gladiators, Fell Shroud. That looks like it could be a priest, but it could also be mage. All right, so here we have, I guess we'll read this last little quick one-pager because there's an article coming up about lore, which we'll save for the next episode because we're right at about our time. But if you look here, we have a little, it says community. It's a community / kind of an ad. We did this last time with the posters too. Loot in real life. The Griffin hatchling's noble wings won't keep you from cuddling on a cold evening. The Wind Rider Cub's wild mane provides all sorts of potential punk rock hairstyles. These are actually cute. And look, they have little cards. Meanwhile, back in Azeroth, each plushie comes with a code to receive a digital version of your new pet in-game on all of your characters, so you can explore Azeroth with your noble Griffin or crafty Wind Rider by your side every step or flight of the way. Oh my goodness. That's cool. All right. Azeroth's cuddly critters are invading the real world. Pet collectors start preparing shelf space for landing. Azeroth's flying mounts have broken free of their digital restraints and are ready to take flight to your offices and living rooms in the form of plushie pets. There are already an insane number of non-combat pets available in World of Warcraft. 154 at last count, to be exact. There's got to be like over 1,000 now, for sure. If not way more than that, maybe thousands. But none have ever been able to do what these two can. Can your Azure Whelpling play fetch with your dog? My dog would destroy in about 1 minute. It's his favorite thing is to destroy stuffed animals. We will buy him like a Kong or like a tough version of one, something like this, and give it to him, and he just destroys it. He loves it, but it's like that's his idea of killing. He thinks animals should be soft and have to be stuffed with squeakers and fluff. Can you rub your deviant hatchling's head for good luck? Can you show off your disgusting oozling to your significant other without calling him or her over to the computer screen? Currently for sale in the online Blizzard store, the Griffin hatchling and Wind Rider cub pets are made from new ultra plush materials and are oh so soft all over. No pointy bits to worry about when letting younger orcs and elves play with them. Each plushie comes in a black drawstring bag emblazoned with their respective faction's crest for easy travel. Like this, I'm guessing. That's pretty cool too. I mean, even just that bag would be cool to have. And instant summoning, although attempting to ride these little guys is not recommended. Both proudly bear their Horde or Alliance emblem around their necks as well, passively intimidating members of the opposing faction from any perch or actively declaring your allegiance to coworkers, family members, or anyone else standing close enough for you to send the plushie flying their way. Don't worry, it's soft, remember? Faction indecisive players can pick up both pets, as the matching in-game companion that comes with each will fly by your side no matter what. Even if you go the diplomatic route, remember that you're never too old to pick up plushies and pretend fight with them on your desk. Roar/dodge. I would 100% get these. They are cute. All right, so that's it for this one. We got another episode in the pipe, 5x5. Hey, thank you everybody so much for watching and for tuning in. I appreciate you. And I'll see you next time on Lore of Warcraft.